Hey, it's me, Lou, and today I thought I'd have a little fun and just do a little bit of sketching. It's been a long time since I actually flexed my drawing muscles, and every now and then I keep on thinking that if I don't do it, I'm gonna forget how to draw. So I didn't have a whole lot going on today, and I had some time to kill, so I thought I'd have some fun and just sketch a little. Not really sure what I'm gonna sketch. If anything, I might lean towards drawing maybe like a superhero or something. I grew up drawing superheroes. I love comic books, and I don't know. I think right now I might be leaning towards the Marvel character Venom. I like his costume design a lot. It's mostly black, very simple. A lot of black, white, a little bit of red in it. So yeah, let's draw Venom. Okay, so normally I'd sketch this out with a pencil, but the camera wasn't picking up the pencil line, so I'm just gonna sketch this out in Sharpie, and I might go to a bolder Sharpie marker, for the final drawing. Okay, so for Venom, I guess let's go for more of a close up on his upper half. I don't want to do a full body shot, so maybe if anything, just focus on his upper half a little. So the way I'm gonna approach this is first, let's start with his head. And think of a pose. All right, Venom, he's very menacing. And I'd like to think that he's always kind of like crouched or hunched over, kind of like a predator, ready to like pounce on his prey. So let's do a little bit of gesture drawing first to figure out how I want him. So let's start with the head. I'm going to draw Venom's head right about here. Is this picking up on the... No, it's not picking up on the camera. Oh, there you go. All right. So this is going to be Venom's head. I'm just going to sketch this out. And if it looks a little faint now, don't worry. It'll start... Once I start fleshing it out a little bit more, it'll start coming together and you'll be able to see it better. Alright, so there's his head right now. And we're going to draw... I don't know, maybe this is his neck or shoulders. It's going to be hunched over. And we're going to have part of his upper arm. Venom's a really bulky character. He's very top heavy. So I like to think that all his muscles, everything about him is just big. There's nothing small on Venom. Let's exaggerate. He's going to have a larger mouth later on, so we'll exaggerate that now, get that kind of laid out. There's his brow. Just pull back his head a little. I'm going to make his back bigger. Give him a really big back. And then, maybe this is the other side. Maybe this is a little bit of his chest. And then over here, we'll maybe add his fingers. There's one finger. Maybe a second. Third, and then, I don't know, fourth. And this thumb underneath. Now for this, I don't know, the way I draw, it's very loose sometimes. I don't know if this even makes any sense to like anyone just looking at it. But I can kind of see this in my head right now. Alright. His eyes. Venom, the cool thing, Venom is a very cool character. He has these giant eyes. He's a very organic looking character. He's kind of a combination. If you took the black costume Spider-Man and kind of mixed it with some semblance of the xenomorph from the Alien films. So I'm going to plan his eyes out there, a little bit of his mouth. And Venom, I like to give him just like I was a big fan of like the Todd McFarlane, Eric Larson Venom. And I love the big fangs, the big teeth, the really exaggerated mouth, and just a long mandible and jaw. Alright, so... Alright, this is kind of Venom, if you can see it. Alright, does that make sense? Alright, so here's my Venom. And then I'm going to start fleshing him out a little. Let's work from the foreground and work our way back. Just to start blocking all the larger shapes. I'm going to start here with his upper arm and his bicep. This is going to be his left arm. Now, I want this to have some sort of, I want to give the drawing kind of like a little bit of depth. So this is gonna pop a little bit more than this right now. So let's draw that. Now, this is a very loose drawing. I'm not looking to draw anything very refined. You know, for me, this is just a quick render. And then once I block all these shapes in, I'll figure out my light source a little bit later. All right, those are the muscle groups. I'm gonna work on his head now. Let's start with his eyes. Once I have his eyes figured out, and then I can figure out the rest of his head later. He has these giant white eyes. They just really conform to the front of his face and well past his forehead and brow. He's a really awesome character. I like the way he looks. He's one of those things where there's that old adage, keep things simple, and his design is just so simple, but it works so well. I mean, nowadays, costumes, especially in superheroes, they're so overdone. You know, you need to see every rivet, every zipper, every button. You know, they love having textures on the costumes and stuff, but I was just a big fan of the plain spandex look. There's nothing wrong with that, in my opinion. And it's a lot easier to draw, too. Alright, so this is going to be his upper head. Let's finish fleshing out the top of his cranium. His teeth. Let's figure out where his gums are. So I think his gums are going to be like here. Now, he has a giant, I don't know, his mouth just gets really large. So you might see more of his gums than I think you'd like to see. Let's get his jaw and mandible in. So I'm going to mark off his lower gums are going to be here. And then his chin's going to be here. And then I'm going to give him this like here's his neck. I really want to give him a giant back. You know, really give you an impression that he's just really hunched over and he's ready to pounce. And then we'll come back here. I'll work on his shoulder a little. And his chest. And then I'm going to start fleshing out his hands a little. This is going to be the fingernail and his thumb. Here's his pointer finger's nail. Here's going to be his middle finger, ring fingernail. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4. I gotta count. If I don't count, I'm not gonna know how many fingers. I might give him like an extra finger or something. So this is starting to flesh out a little. At least now, it's one of those things. I know some artists, they can see the drawings in their head before they, you know, put the pen to the paper. I'm kind of 50-50. There's sometimes when I can see it in my head, and there's other times where I'm not gonna know what it is until I actually just start, you know, drawing it, and it starts taking a life of its own. For me, that's the most enjoyable way, is when drawing's a little bit more, I don't know, organic in that sense. How's his hand gonna be? His palm is gonna be, if I had to guess, it's gonna be like here. And there's his thumb. And there's where's his arm? His arm's gonna be somewhere here. All right. Okay, so if you can make heads or tails of this, this is gonna be Venom. All right. Now what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna start fleshing out his face a little. And I think I really need to solidify this drawing a little bit more. So let's go back here. Let's define a light source first. Okay. Normally, I think from what I've learned and from what I've been told is that, especially like in horror and things that are scary, you always want to light things from the bottom. So I'm guessing my light source is going to probably emanate somewhere in the bottom here. So if the light's here, it's gonna cast shadows up here. So let's start drawing a little. All right, so this is gonna be his upper arm. And I'm gonna give this a much thicker line weight than the rest of the body, just to give it some separation and pop later. And let me grab a thicker marker real quick. Alright, so, okay, here I have the Sharpie Magnum. Alright, let's see if, hopefully this still has ink. It's been a while since I've used this. Okay. Alright, so this is going to be blocked in. This is going to be the contour line of his upper arm and bicep. And let's start planning out the shadows. Alright, as I talked about earlier, the shadows are coming from down here. So I'm just going to start thinking about where I want these shadows. Mark them off for the next. And I'm just going to try to figure out how the shadows conform and form around the muscles to give it some sense of mass and volume. Try to figure out where the peaks and valleys are in the arm. Let's go up like this. Okay. Now, like I said, this is just a very rough sketch. It's not a very refined drawing. I just wanted to kind of loosen up and just draw for fun. It's been a while since I've actually sat down and just really seriously draw anything. The past year and a half, when I would draw, I'd be messing around more so on my iPad, so I'd be messing around digitally. But I'm just a big fan of just working old school, analog. I like feeling the actual texture of the paper. I like holding, you know, my actual utensils and feeling them scrape and stuff. Ideally, if I had the time, I'd work in real pen and ink. Growing up, I kind of taught myself how to work with a crow quill pen and a brush, and you know, I just work with a bottle of India ink. But I don't have that kind of time anymore. You know, when I was younger, it'd be so easy for me to just devote an entire, like, you know, 8-12 hours on a drawing and just sit there and just draw. But now that I'm an adult, quote unquote, I gotta, like, you know, manage my time better. So for me nowadays, it's just about drawing and moving fast. And my motto is kind of nowadays, it doesn't have to be perfect, it just has to be done. So, you know, even if it's not the most perfect drawing, if I could walk away with something that I just produced and, you know, something to show for my time, and I'm happy with it, you know, that's the important thing. Alright, so we're getting his upper arm kind of fleshed out a little. Alright, so I'm going to come in here and just add a quick couple of... I could come back here. I'll come back here to render this out later. I just want to keep on continuing the pace I'm at. Alright, so now I'm going to work on his head next, and I don't want to give it the same kind of line weight as I gave the shoulder, because this weight, for me, it'll start giving the drawing a little bit more depth and volume. If the line weight or contour line that surrounds his head is a little bit different. So let's just clean up these lines. That's the bad thing with sketching out Sharpie, is that these lines are just messy. And I'm just going to try to clean them up a little. Alright, it's a little bit nicer. Yeah, kind of, I shouldn't have came in so sloppy with this, but I don't know, I think I could salvage the lines a little bit. Alright. So, once I'm getting his head in, let's try to figure out his jaw. His jaw's right about here. Here's his head. Okay, so for my own sake right now, I'm going to refrain from working on the head right now, and I'm just going to kind of work a little on the other parts of his body, just so in my head I could figure out how much detail and attention I want to give it later. So I'm working on his upper right arm and his upper part of his chest, and I'm going to work on his back a little. Now this line here is it bothers me that this is so sketchy, and I try to clean it up and fill it in, but once I fill this in, it flattens the drawing because this line weight here is just going to match. So I'm just going to leave this alone. Here, I might... Now, Venom has a little bit of white in his costume, and I'm just going to... leave this white. He has like an emblem on his chest, and it's a little white. Now, you don't need to see everything here, but the nice thing is if I leave this white, it'll draw more attention to the mouth and let the mouth pop a little and give it some breathing room. Alright, so right now I'm just going to block out and try to figure out where I want my shapes and shadows. Because I'm still keeping in mind that the light source for my drawing is coming from down here. So let's start filling this in. I remember when I was first exposed to the character Venom, I was probably like, I want to say maybe freshman in high school, or maybe in junior high. And I remember the first time I saw his character design, it just blew me away. He was so different from the other superheroes I kind of grew up on, because he was like as big as the Hulk. I mean, the way he was visualized, he looked as big as the Hulk, but he had like all the powers of like Spider-Man, and he just had like a very nasty, gritty edge about him, which I thought was just so cool. You know, when you're that age, you know, at least for me, I kind of gravitated more towards the darker characters and the cooler characters. Okay, so we have this figured out a little. Let's darken that a little. Okay. Now, I might come back and make this just a little bit darker, because I don't know, it's kind of flattening out a little. But let's keep on going and see. Just like I said, this is just a sketch, work in progress kind of deal. It doesn't need to be perfect. This needs to be done. All right, so his neck and shoulders is going to be up here. He's going to have a big back. Now, since the light's being casted from underneath him, you're not really going to see a lot of light up here, I believe. So, actually, I might be able to save this a little. Let's bring out his back just a little bit more. Okay, so this is going to be the top of his back. Like that there. I don't really know all my muscle groups all that well. Okay. So let's work on his teeth a little, because I think, right, it's starting to come together. I could kind of see it in my head. There's some parts here that I kind of am not sure on. I think the hard thing is that working with markers, that you can't, you know, once a line's permanent, you know, I can't really erase it later. No, this isn't like working digitally where you just click a button and hit undo. This is all very permanent. I think that's the one thing I like about working analog, especially in situations like this, is that you have to commit to your mistakes. And if your mistakes don't always, you know, if they don't work, it's not going to work. So you just kind of have to just live with it and make it work. And I think that's true for anything in life. You make mistakes, you just have to commit to it and just make it work. So right now I'm just trying to flesh out his neck muscles a little. It's not accurate. I figure everything's going to be hidden in shadow. And what's that old saying? When in doubt, just black it out. So now I don't want to lose too much of his head in the back here. So I'm going to have to find a way to... So if the shadows are coming here, let's figure out the shape of his forehead. And this is kind of... do this. I might have messed the drawing up. So I don't know. If I mess the drawing up at this point, I'm kind of screwed, but I'll just, so like I said, I'll just have to commit to my mistakes right now. So if the shadow's coming down here, where his upper brow is, nose. Okay. Okay, I'm getting worried because I think I might have messed this up. Okay, so let's darken in this part here of his head. I'm just working really messy right now. These lines, I might have a chance to clean it up later, but right now, okay, that's looking okay. I think I can live with that. His mouth's gonna be here. All right, it's starting to work for me a little. This is where it gets kind of iffy for me. I'm not really sure. I know I kind of messed up somewhere along the way, but okay. And I gotta just darken some of this air around his head a little. Okay, let's work on his teeth. Big front. Now, Venom has these really crazy long fangs. They're really gnarly. And they're not even, you know, everything about the character is just kind of raw. And I shouldn't be sketching them. I should really be more precise in my lines for his teeth, but I kind of don't care at this point. I really should care more. Okay. All right. All right. Okay, can we see his teeth? All right, we can see his teeth. So I'm going to come in here and just kind of block out the shapes a little. Now the tricky thing with this drawing at this point for me is how am I going to separate the layers and give this thing a little bit more dimension and depth to it, because the more black I add to every time I'm adding more black to this, it's just going to flatten out the drawing even more. So everything has to be tricky. It's like I said, you can't, when you're working permanent like this, you can't take away a line. You know, you have to just kind of live with the fact that it's permanent and this is on there. Okay, so I'm gonna leave that there. Okay, so the upper half of Venom's done. Now what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna start focusing on the hand a little. All right, so to give this pop, and this is where I'm getting kind of sketchy again. I'm not sure about this, but so over here is Venom's right arm, his upper arm, and here's his bicep. I'm gonna black this out and not make this so dark, because right now I'm running the risk of this flattening everything and you just lose him altogether. So I don't know, I'm just gonna gamble on it. I'm just gonna darken all this. Get another duller Sharpie. That's not right. Okay. God, I'm having a hard time making heads or tails with some of this. Yeah, I'm kind of regretting that I came in so rough on this. I should have just not have been so manic about my marks. But at the same time, I think when you're a little bit looser, your characters, and they have a little bit more energy, everything looks a little bit more kinetic. I don't know if this looks right. Yeah, I don't know if this looks right, but I'm going to live with it. Commit to this mistake. Alright, so. And I'm just going to clean up this line here. Clean up this a little bit. I don't want to make the line weight too heavy, because then, like I said, it'll just kill everything. Two, three, four, five. Okay, I don't know what this is. I'm just gonna fake it. So like I said, when in doubt, black it out. Maybe there's some sort of mass here of his arm that doesn't really make sense. Okay. All right, so here's Venom. I'm gonna come back here and try to figure out how to render out the hand so it's not as dark as the rest of this. So I'm just gonna come in and I'm just gonna start adding some cross hatching and just try to give this a little bit more, I don't know, depth and volume with shading. So let's start up here. Let's get a finer marker. All right, hopefully this is making sense. It's making sense? I don't know. Okay. Now, as I'm adding all these lines in, I'm still trying to keep in mind where my light source is, because I don't want to lose everything in the process. I was never a firm believer in, using fancy tools and stuff like that. My attitude's always been, if it leaves a mark, it's good enough. I'm sure that the quality of your art, probably works better with better quality tools, but I sometimes think people get lost in that and forget that, when it comes down to it, you just have to. So I think it's more about technique and just understanding of what you're doing, and then, if you're using a really nice brush or a nice marker, or what, version of Photoshop you're using or whatever. For me, all that kind of stuff has always just been kind of trivial. I don't really get caught up in that kind of hoopla. There we go. He's starting to take some form. It's looking alright. I'm kind of digging it. It's not 100% where I'd want it to be, but it's like I said, for me it's kind of like, it doesn't have to be perfect, it just has to be done. I don't want to get, this is more supposed to be just like it's a nice exercise to, like, just get caught up on drawing since it's been such a long time. And I'm a child of the 90s, so like cross-hatching was really big back in like the 90s, especially in comic books. Every artist wanted to see how many lines they could get into their artwork. I think it's mostly because of, like, there were such superb inkers during that time period, like Scott Williams and like Bob McLeod, and you look at some other artists like Neil Adams, and their stuff was just amazing. I remember there was one artist, I think his name was, I want to say Richard Bennett, is that right? He did Brass on Comico, and that was such a beautiful comic. That was amazing. Oh, not Comico, it was what was Neil Adams' imprint? I can't remember the name of it, but I think it was Now Comics, maybe? I don't know. Okay, so we kind of have Venom worked out a little. Let's add some a little bit finer lines here just to break things up a little. I remember one time when I was in high school, one of my classmates came up to me. He wasn't necessarily an artist by any means, but he was looking at my drawings. He was one of the things that baffled him the most is he was asking, how do you know where to put what line? And I thought it was a very valid question, because I think I kind of grew up with that, thinking that same stuff. Because every time I'd look at a drawing, you know, studying other people's artwork, I was always like, why did this person put this line here? And it always is kind of, I don't know, some ways baffled me. And as a kid growing up, I think sometimes it's a lot of monkey see, monkey do, and you just end up doing a lot of things, and you don't know why you're doing it. You might just do it because it's in fashion, or, you know, someone you like does it. And I think that applied for me in art. I would see certain people do certain things, and I'd wonder, you know, why was he drawing, you know, this way and doing that thing? Right. So now, looking at it, he looks like this looks like a giant glob. I mean, I can kind of see the image in my head. Am I happy with it? I'm content. So now I just want to work on here and work on it enough so that whatever I do here doesn't jeopardize this, what I have. So I just got to figure out how I'm going to render this. Let's give the nails, there's going to be, let's just give them kind of like more of a sheen. And just make them shiny. I don't want to. Well, it's almost like, think of this as like a hard plastic. We'll render it out that way, where it just has more of a defined reflective feature, where it's more black and white. There's more contrast. There's not going to be any line work in it. It's either going to be solid blacks with some white. Okay. And for the inside of the palm, I don't want to darken it out, because if I darken it out, it blends in with this hand here. So I'm thinking maybe I could add some gradient to it. Again, this might be one of those things where I'm really messing up the drawing. Yeah, that's okay. I could live with this. It's not perfect, but like I said, it doesn't have to be perfect. It just needs to be done. Get her done. All right. There we go. Okay, let's finish off the fingers and we'll wrap this up. Now I'm opting here to make this just a little bit sketchier, just because I think it'll separate the hand from this. I don't know if that's a smart thing, but I don't know. All right, this looks okay. It's looking all right. Okay, there we go. I think if I do any line work here, I might go with a finer pen, just because if I'm guessing in my head that if I worked with the same line thickness here as I do here, this is gonna flatten the drawing out, and I don't want that. So let's just go like this. Okay, voila, we have Venom. Do I want to add color to this? Maybe, maybe not. Let's add a little bit of color just for the hell of it. Alright, Venom, so like I said, he has some red in his costume, but the red in his costume is his mouth. So I'm just going to add, this is color in his gums at least. No, I think I'm nothing fancy here. I'm just using a red Sharpie I had laying around. You know, I'd love to work in Copic markers, but they're so expensive. Okay, so I think I'm happy with this. I'm liking this a lot. So I don't know. Let's get my name on here. What's the date today? Today is the February 27. There you go. Venom. All right, so I don't know. If you're watching this, I hope you learned something. If you thought it was stupid, that's okay. It's been a while since I drew anything anyway, so. Thanks for sticking around and just watching this. This is actually my second YouTube drawing video. I did a Harry Potter one long time ago, like a lifetime ago. And then they took it down because it had like Harry Potter music in the background. And that boggled my mind because nowadays, like every other YouTube video just lifts stuff from everything else, and I don't know. I get the whole copyright thing, but, you know, this is how it is. But here's Venom. Thanks for watching, and peace out.